Hi, I'm Lana Wilson. I'm here with Natalie Musteata and Alexander Singh to talk about their extraordinary Oscar-nominated short, Two People Exchanging Saliva. Congratulations to both of you. I love the film so much, as you know. I've gotten to see it multiple times, including on the big screen, and it's just a ravishing, incredibly epic achievement. I think what I love about it is that it combines this droll sense of humor and this absurdism and these fabulous aesthetics and fashion with a very, very serious and dark and disturbing and highly politicized world that says so much about the world we're living in now. And at the center of all of this is this beautiful queer love story. So it's just such a unique combination of genres and such a huge ambition on all levels. So congratulations to both of you. I'd love to start just by asking you, what came first, the story or the world of this film?
Oh, that's such a good question. And also thank you, Lana. We're
Yes.
we're such big fans of your work and we've also known you for a really long time and we feel so lucky to be doing this conversation with you. So thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Um,
Pleasure.
but yeah, so what came first? I mean, I think we always describe like writing a script a little bit like a racehorse or a horse race. Wait,
Those at the fairground when you have those little fake horses and they run a little, and there's four jockeys and then one of them gets ahead. And for us, this is actually an analogy that we heard David Mitchell talk about, the novelist, that you have character, plot, tone, and sort of form, and that those things kind of like if one gets a little bit too far ahead of the other, the rest have to kind of catch up. Um, we
yeah.
often,
So
yeah.
I mean, I think in this case, the world did appear first.
So that little green jockey was
Yeah,
went out ahead.
yeah,
Yeah.
and just because in part like it was the circumstances that the film came out of, which was this unique opportunity to shoot inside this luxury department store in France, which was a place that we would never normally have ridden for because it's such a hard to access space. And then once we knew that we had this unique opportunity, we decided to, subvert the rules of how that space would work, and like, play with the symbolism around the issues, power and money and status and desire and beauty, and how all of those intersect with one another. So
And I think the image came to mind very quickly of the payment system being slaps, and Natalie suggested that as a counterpoint, if there's this violence, maybe intimacy would be absent. And so we had these kind of two seemingly separate ideas that had a sort of like they were almost like thematic inversals of one another, and we knew immediately that it was such a feminine space that it needed to be the story of two characters who meet in this world and would desire one another, and it would make sense that for an interesting power dynamic would be between a shopper and a sales assistant, and
I think a lot of people have realized or have sort of noted the relationship between our film and Carol. And, I've jokingly described our film as like the 21st century dystopic version of Carol.
Right.
And I mean, there are a lot of the same issues around queer policing are in Carol itself. Here, being queer is not illegal, but rather intimacy at large is. And a lot of those ideas came out of the fact that so many civil liberties are being lost, whether it's in the US or abroad. And, in particular, we were looking in Iran where women are not allowed to dance in public. Nobody is allowed to dance in public, but women in particular are policed in terms of, the wearing of hijabs or driving cars, or just so many, things that feel absurd to us. And yet they are a part of our lived reality. We try to make sure that like no horse gets too far ahead of the other, and so we're always writing in concert because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, like the emotional story between these characters is what matters to us most.
So
The world is background.
once you have those interesting circumstances, the rules of the world, which still maybe shock and intrigue the viewer who first encounters them, almost become background to our writing process, and they don't
Hmm.
shock us anymore in the same way that they don't shock the characters, and we just become really invested in this story as if we were writing a straight drama. Like,
Yeah.
what if we were writing a Kenneth Lonergan film? And it just, instead of it taking place in Manchester, then it takes place in this world, in this Paris.
Right. Well, I love the department store setting too, because there's so much I related to from like a contemporary dating perspective, actually, in the film. I mean, just this sense of the coldness of dating people in a consumerist shopping mindset is kind of
Yes.
literalized in a way.
Yeah.
And the consumerist mindset that makes us all in our most intimate romantic relationships, queer or not, feel more isolated, more disconnected and alienated from each other. And there's less willingness to trust and take that leap of faith, which is such a huge part of your film too, because of course these characters, to trust each other, to kiss, they're risking everything. They're risking
Yeah.
their lives, which is a real situation in some places in our world too. So, but I love how the department store literalizes that in this incredible way and makes it the transactional nature of all of this extra clear. And you had some real filming challenges that you kind of harnessed in an extraordinary way, right? At this department store. Can you tell me what parameters you were given for filming at Galerie Lafayette in Paris, what the challenges were?
Well, I mean, they were so generous with us, but at the end of the day, it is a working department store,
It's
so
open
it's
7 days a week,
yeah.
and throughout most of the year, even at night, the little pop-up stores and boutiques
Yeah, they're
off.
constantly changing.
Yes.
So it's actually open kind of 24/7 in the sense that at night when it's closed to the public, there's work being done where the displays are being changed. And so they were really generous with us in the sense that we were like, we want to tell a story with a beginning, middle, and end. We need a certain amount of time here. And so they gave us 7 nights, which was a lot. But the nights are very short because by the time that the store closes and we come in with all of our equipment and set up, we would probably have camera up at midnight, and then we would be taking a lunch break at 3 a.m. This whole thing about
What?
like yeah, this
Yes.
whole thing about
1 hour
French
lunch.
hours.
Yeah.
French hours don't exist in France.
Yes.
This is actually like a terminology that we use like abroad,
Yes.
but it doesn't exist in France.
No,
Like, you
there's no way the
cannot-
French would not have lunch.
yeah, whether it's 3 o'clock in the morning or noon.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there were the cigarette breaks. So like our shooting hours in the middle of the night were really quite short, and everything was very tight because we had this window. And if we didn't make it within the window, then that was it. We were losing things. And actually, we talked about this recently, but we on the last night we saved the kiss for last, and we almost didn't make it because everyone forgot that we were shooting. Our last night was Armistice Day, and that there was a giant parade that was going to be coming down the Champs-Élysées. And so the police
Oh, no.
arrived, and they were like, "We have to shut this down." And I mean, we made it. Obviously, there is a kiss in the film, but
Right.
it was a very tight call. And
So much pressure. So you're filming only overnight. You're starting rolling at midnight. You have a lunch break at 3 a.m. and then you have to wrap up and put everything back by 7
Yes.
a.m. or something.
6:30.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
did
And
the-
we're also
Wow.
a very small team because, I mean, one, like, we just didn't have the means to have a massive team, but also, like, in order to, sort of like be as nimble as possible, we had, just like the bare necessity amount of people. And so, yeah, I mean, I felt, and also we were like working every day during the day up until the day we shot, so like there was no transition, so we just like suddenly, like our first night of shooting, we were just awake 24 hours, and then we also have a little kid, so we would like
Wow.
end the day and then it would be like morning, and it was it was a lot.
That's
But also
insane.
like it was also magical. Like, it's like any of these really intense adrenaline fueled experiences, like so stressful at the time and then really magical in retrospect.
Right. Well, and it's amazing that you had to reset everything every single night that you filmed, and that this was a public department store open all the time. Because when you look at the film, it looks so aesthetically realized and precise that I would have thought you constructed this set. You know what I
Oh,
mean? Can you tell me about your decision to film in black and white and how you decided to work within these parameters to make something that felt so aesthetically yours?
well, the black and white also kind of relates to the precision of the composing and the realities of working in this department store. Because in the film, you might think, oh, this is an incredibly beautiful department store that wherever you throw the camera, it just looks absolutely fantastic. It's actually a space that is designed to sell a lot of stuff and is just full to the brim with clothes and stands. And during the day, it's very orally noisy. There's lots of music and visually it's also very noisy in terms of there's a lot of colors and we with the black and white, I think we knew immediately that we should film in black and white because it drained this world of sort of life but also of distraction and revealed the inherent geometry of this building, which was a bank built in the 30s. And then it's also a building that has a lot of glass in it, and mirrors. So there's lots of silvery surfaces and lots of boxes and cubes to put in shoes, to put
Yeah.
in sunglasses. And so we prepared the film by scanning every single location on our phones using an app called Polycam. And we built these 3D models and then animated the characters very crudely. It looked like a 90s video game, like Final
You made
Fantasy.
your own animations in advance of
Yes.
Yeah.
your scenes,
Well,
Yes.
I
of
mean, neither
shots.
Alex, like, as you know, like, neither Alex or I come from the film industry. So we wanted to make sure, I mean, not only did we have no time to waste in the middle of the night, but we also wanted to make sure that had like a really clear plan going in. Also, because there are two of us. So, like, we don't have time on set to be like debating, where the camera should be placed. Like, we have to have
Yeah.
made those decisions beforehand. None of which is to say that we never improvised. We did, but we always knew that we had like something to fall back on. And then in terms of the black and white, it was also like, as Alex was saying, like black and white is almost like an X-ray. Like it reduces everything to lines, and the geometry of the store becomes really distinct, so that it becomes like this world that's very
Rigid.
regimented, and so you see that in the architecture itself, and then there's this sort of layering effect of like boxes upon boxes upon boxes. And so we were really careful where we placed the camera in order to have that sort of feeling of like being enclosed, being surveyed,
Right.
sort of come out, if not in an obvious way, then in an like almost subconscious or like
We
unconscious way.
we often either shot into mirrors or had the characters looking at mirrors. In fact, there's a mirror in every scene apart from the ravine where nobody is looking at them. Just the birds and God is looking down on
Yeah.
this awful scene. And so, yeah, there was a lot of the preparation beforehand to allow us to have a liberty when we're there to be very present emotionally with the actors, because the actors are moving between different scenes and different moments, and we're all sort of trying to get ourselves in the same emotional state of the actor so that we can be a good audience
Yeah,
for
yeah.
for
And
that
tell me about
performance.
working with the actors. You have an incredible cast, and I'm curious, did you give them backstories for these characters? What did you talk about in advance? And then what did you talk about on set with each of the three women who are the leads in your film?
Yeah, we,
I think
we
we.
we talked a lot about backstory. It's especially with like every actor is different. But Zara, for instance, didn't want to do any rehearsing, but she did really want to understand like exactly who her character Anjine is, and like where is she coming from, and what is her relationship with her husband, and what kind of profession does she have, even if those things are never
Scene.
seen in the film. And so that was a big part of her process. And I remember she came to set on the first day, on the first night, and she had like annotated her script. And she goes, I thought we were making a short film, but I have as many notes for this script as I do for a feature length film. So like,
Yeah,
she was just
yeah,
like, I didn't realize how complex this film is.
right.
And so
Not
yeah, so she
surprised.
she brought, I think she also brought a lot of herself to the character, because as we've talked about in the past, Czar lives in France in exile, and was actually, put on trial in Iran, her home country, for this intimate tape of hers that was leaked to the press. And so, I mean, she's kind of lived through some of the absurdity. I mean, even more horrifically than what's portrayed in the film.
Yeah. And can you tell me about her dress and the Iranian costume designer who you worked with?
Yeah.
Yes, the dress. We thought we wanted, in the same way that Malaise is a kind of like a character out of space who sort of exists a little bit apart tonally in terms of her playfulness. The dress was meant to feel completely different. Like there was nothing else in the film that looked like it. And we had been inspired by the dress in Bertolucci's The Conformist. There's a scene where she's very famously dancing. She has this black and white striped dress, and there's light coming in through the Venetian blinds, which creates this pattern that's moving, and it has a sort of like a beautiful formality to it. And then
Yeah.
we started working with Rezvan Farsishani, who's the incredible costume designer on this film, and she challenged us to go beyond this sort of like cinematic wink and to make a dress with a pattern that had a significance, that it was have a message of some kind. And we took that quite literally and thought, well, let's like actually inscribe a message into the dress. So I took visual language that I had developed for an art project that I'd originally shown at White Columns in New York the first time, called The Mark of the Third Stripe, which is a language made out of a pattern of 8 by 8 black and white squares. And we took that and we wrote the words "woman,"
Life,
by
freedom.
freedom, which is the moniker of the Kurdish and Iranian women's protest movement. Resval made many designs where those patterns almost become abstracted. And there was this one pattern that she came up with that we were like, immediately, it has to be that, which was these crosses on the back of the dress, which we thought would be so sensual in the scene where Malaise zips up the back of her dress.
And almost like a vertebrae, or like
Yeah.
a skeletal frame.
Wow.
Yeah, it's funny how within the film, a little bit like in the film Secretary, there's restriction and leaning into the sadistic aspects of the system becomes a sensual and erotic liberation. To take these things that are meant to numb and oppress you and to find new meaning and sensuality in them. So the dress is a kind of an example of that, because the dress is quite it's quite restrictive, it's quite formal and blocky itself, and the act of being slapped in the face is also quite totalitarian as a gesture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it can be erotic too. So, and your
Yes.
film is, yeah, playing with and walking on that edge. But I love all those layers where they're in the film, and even if they're not literally spelled out in any way,
Yeah.
but I feel like that level of thoughtfulness that's applied to every single detail in the film is present in a kind of intangible way. And I think it's present too in how your actors are. I'm sure it affected them very, you know what I mean? Because they're then moving, kind of carrying so much with them beyond what we see on screen, like all of those rich details. And with Zara Mir, yeah, her identity, her personal experience, bringing that into the film in this really extraordinary way. And what was it like with the other actors? Did they have a very different process than Zara's? And how did you, were you talking to them each individually, or was it a lot as a group? Or tell me what that was like on set.
I mean, we would kind of, because there are two of us, we would kind of each go to a different actor and then like give our notes, and then we would switch, and then we would confer between one another to make sure that we weren't giving opposite notes.
Yeah.
But we were like almost always on the same page. And then, I mean, with Luana, we had a little bit more time with Luana, who plays Malaise, and Aurélie, who plays Petulant. We had a little bit more time before the shoot. So we did like a couple of rehearsals with them. But in the end, like a lot of the performance was found like on set, and a lot of it was like already, yeah, it's sort of like once they were in costume and in the right setting, it sort of came to life very quickly.
There was a sort of calibration, because every actor has all of these actresses have incredible range and technical ability, but when they enter the script, they'll find a certain like tonal level which they'll sit at, and we were just kind of like pushing one. Like for example, Aurélie has done a lot of theatre, so she has a very expressive, wonderful coloration to everything that she does. And sometimes with Aurélie, we were trying to like take that expressiveness and that coloration, like bring it, interiorize it a little bit. And then Luana, who has a background doing incredibly very grounded, very subtle, very naturalistic films, we were just kind of like pushing her up just a little bit, not, but
Yeah.
just so that
Kind
they
of just
will
to bring everyone
everyone
at
into the same,
register.
the same register, and that was
Right.
which I think worked really well. I think, and I think we really love and we were very moved and impressed by the incredible range that these actresses have. Zara is not someone who's known for doing like I hesitate to say comedic, but there's
There are
something.
comedic moments.
There are
Yeah,
comedic moments.
totally.
I'd say she's a very vulnerable character. She's a character that's a little bit lost, and I
Yep.
think Zara played her incredibly beautifully. And
Yeah.
that's yeah.
Yeah.
They're all extraordinary, just haunting, unforgettable performances. And I think what I love about it is because, yeah, anyone who, watches a lot of kind of international auteur cinema recognizes most of them from these different universes, different country cinemas, and then to see them all together in this way is so cool. So I love what you did to bring them into the same register, but allow them to each keep their individuality in a way as performers. What happens if the two of you disagree? I'm curious if you ever do disagree and what goes down.
Well, it's so funny because like we really only had one moment on set where we were just like it was a really charged night in the sense that we were shooting like two of the most important moments for me. One was the makeup scene, which is like this like it is the
It's
sort of
the
like
pivotal.
culmination of their love.
It's
They're
the
sort of saying,
fulcrum of the whole film.
Yeah.
Because it's the moment where Zara, her power shifts into much like a romantic comedy where Malaise loves Angine and Angine resists. And then at a certain point, the power shift goes back to the other side.
yeah.
So that was the most important scene of the film.
Yeah, and so there was a lot riding on that scene, and it's a very intimate scene. And then right after that, we were supposed to be shooting this giant group scene, which is the incident, when this woman gets taken away. And actually, I mean, the two scenes are chronological in the film as well. And we were running, we just like weren't getting the makeup scene. We had written this. We had written that Angine's eyes were closed, and I think because it was the middle of the night, her eyes like kept fluttering, and so it was very distracting, and like it was the only thing that like anyone would look at, if they were watching this moment. And so I was like, I was just like, we need to keep her eyes open, like her eyes need to be open, like eyes are the soul, like like let's just look into her eyes. And Alex was really tied to keeping what we had written on the page. And in the end, and we spent like a few minutes arguing about this. And in the end, we ended up shooting it both ways, and both things are in the film. So we kind of like created a compromise between the two, and it works super well. And, no one's thinking about it. And, the lesson here is that you should just always shoot it both ways because it's faster than having an argument.
Having to debate. Yeah.
yeah.
I love that.
And,
Well, I know we have to wrap up in a second, but my final question for the two of you is that you bring such unique backgrounds to this film from the visual art world as a curator, Natalie, the visual artist, Alex, and I've been amazed seeing you become an artist as well, Natalie. It's so inspiring and unusual. And I'm curious what you think the two of you do differently, maybe than a kind of traditional fiction film director who went to film school or something like that. Was there anything on set where people are saying, we haven't done it that way before? Or what is different about the way you work because of your backgrounds?
Well, I think like not knowing the rules is really liberating, and there
Well,
are
rules isn't the right way.
yeah, or
Not
just like the
being,
customs,
not knowing what's hip.
or
Like not knowing that this is in and that's not
Yeah.
in.
but I do think like there would be moments where people would be like, well, that's just not the way it's done, and I was like, but why? Like let's go ahead and do it, because in art there really shouldn't be rules. And if you're subscribing to them, then you probably aren't going to make something super original. I mean, for instance, like just in terms of like, I mean, not a rule, but like we didn't know that making a 30 something long minute short was like not like not
We knew it
suggested.
wasn't a great
Yeah.
idea. We didn't know it was the death zone and that you should not walk
If you'd
against
gone to
it.
And
film school, you
obviously,
would have been told make it under 15 minutes, but
yeah.
then it would have
Yes.
been like
And
everything
you
else.
know,
Yeah.
obviously it did work out for us. So like you can make longer shorts. It's
Yeah.
not suggested because it does make things difficult in
There are
terms of
certain
like,
aspects of this film that came out. I think the just leaping on this image of people being slapped in the face, that really comes from a surrealist, Dadaist performance kind of background, where that seems totally plausible as a premise for a film. Also, an approach to, because in visual art you are working with so little resources. Sometimes the what you have access to becomes how you generate a story. So, for
yeah.
example, the cardboard boxes had a lot of conceptual ideas related to them, the disposability of things, experiencing the pandemic and seeing Amazon boxes delivered to people's houses whilst we were running out of coffins, and so people were being buried in cardboard boxes. But also, we knew, having done previous projects, that a cardboard box is very cheap and that we could fill a whole ravine with a very, we immediately knew this would be a
An
really
arresting
an
image.
arresting image
Yeah.
that is very doable. And I remember we had some meeting with, I think we were first meeting with HODs, we talked to production designers and they said, oh, this could be very expensive. Like, no, trust us. Like, we know, like, cardboard boxes are very cheap.
Yeah.
We can get them easily.
And,
I love
honestly,
that.
like, you know, we didn't have the ravine until like 2 days before we shot there. And the
Whoa.
cardboard boxes arrived the morning of the shoot, and they were not set up when we arrived, and we were hauling them around this ravine by ourselves with
Yeah.
our production designer, and like, you know, it was all happening in a really DIY fashion. And then there were also like moments in the film where we shot on Alex's handheld camera as a sort of like
B
B
cam.
camera while we were moving from location to location. Alex and I like took Lana on the subway, you know, because we didn't have permission to shoot on the metro,
Yeah.
and we just, you know, like I'm in that shot, you know, I'm the lookout, and Alex is behind the camera, and Luana is, you know, in the background, and
Right.
This is the B cam.
Yeah.
Look
That's
how
the
small
camera
it
you were
is.
using.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's tiny.
For all the,
Yeah.
it's like guerrilla style filming on the
and then
street.
a lot of the outdoor
Yeah.
scenes are
Also,
shot in a
the
guerrilla style.
you know, in the montage when they push forward the shopping items.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
That's the B cam. That's
Yeah.
this cam.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it was there was some resistance in the production. They were like, "Oh, that's not going to match the A cam." We just brought our kind of like this. You have to like
You have to be a
a
little
little
free.
bit run and gun, a little
Yeah.
bit student film sometimes.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
allow the machine of filmmaking to do what it does well. For example, we did 90 to 95% of the VFX and paint out shots right here on this computer because otherwise it would have cost so much money.
You did them yourselves. That's
Yes.
extraordinary.
Because as a, you know, in visual art, you're just used to like, oh, we need to
We'll just
learn.
figure it out. I mean,
Yeah.
that's how we came
Yeah.
to film. Is
Yeah.
Alex was like, we didn't go to film school, but I bet we can learn how to do this ourselves.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was sort of like that audacity
Yeah.
that landed us here.
Yeah.
Well, and
you're-
the
Lana, you're going
creativity and the
through-
resourcefulness. And I think it's that mix of the vision and the creativity and the ability to think on the fly with the pragmatism, the willingness to do anything, even filming illegally, secretly on a subway to get what you need and not letting go of that vision despite the rules that other people are reminding you of all the time. It's that kind of persistence of vision that makes this film so remarkable. Congratulations again. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me about it. I love hearing more about your process. And yeah, see you guys soon.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lana.
so much,
Thank
Lana.
you.
Soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.